Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama, and joining me is my wonderful co-host Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone. And tonight on Mom Street USA, we are bringing you part 2 of our Advanced Dining Reservation for Kids series. So we are tackling Hollywood Studios and Epcot tonight, which has been a bit of a bear to research, but we're here and we hopefully have some good info for you. And we're excited. Kate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I was in Disneyland all week, and so I'm definitely trying to recover from that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I had a really wonderful time with my dad, who was the one who took me to Disney when I was small, and now I feel like I get to take him to Disney as he gets a little bit older. So it was a really special trip for that reason. But I am excited to get to go to Disney World in a couple of weeks, so I'm happy to talk about this topic and dig into some of the best ADRs, advanced dining reservations for families more specifically. And I feel like it's really important that we mention that it's for families, because there are some of my favorites that didn't make this list.
Yes.
Because it's for families specifically.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, it was so fun looking into these because, and we've discussed this on, part 1 of our episode. So again, if you missed part 1, we already tackled Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. So that was in part 1. So head and find part 1 on our feed to make sure that you get those as well. But we talked about it's a lot of research and it's a lot of new places. And I very rarely do ADR. So it's been a lot of fun to look up menus and kind of price things out and talk with my husband about, maybe we should add this to our list for our next trip and all of that. So it's been fun. Epcot was a lot. So when we get there, we will discuss that. Hollywood Studios was unique in its own way to do the research for that. So it's all good though.
Well, you did a really wonderful job with it because I was traveling, so you knew I couldn't contribute very much. But I do have a lot of things to contribute in the show in terms of my experience there, especially traveling with my kids. So I'm excited for that. So all that being said, do you think that we should jump into Hollywood Studios?
Yes. Yeah, let's start there. I think that sounds good. And just a reminder, if you didn't listen to or catch part 1, so we are comparing basically lunch and dinner type menus because that's the easiest thing to compare across the board because of the just differences in which meals these different places have to offer. We are looking at options based on price, variety on the menu for kids. Again, we're looking at kids specifically, location, atmosphere, things like that. We are not talking any sort of character meals in this series. We did a whole episode on character dining. So if you're looking for information on who's where and what character dinings are available and what meals are where and all of that, episode 43 of Mom Street USA is your BFF for that.
Yeah, we really did go very deeply into what the options are and which ones maybe are worth your money and which ones aren't. So that's a great episode to revisit if you're looking for character dining meals.
Yes. So let's jump to Hollywood Studios to start. As I mentioned just briefly a little bit ago, Hollywood Studios was really interesting because as I was looking up the ADRs, I was looking at the list going, we've been trying to keep this list to 5 per park area.
Being the keyword.
Trying. We're, it's okay. We're doing okay. But really, truly, when I looked at the list, there were really only 5 options.
Which actually is surprising when you said that. I was like, really? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So 2 of the options were taken off, and that was Hollywood and Vine, because we're not talking about character meals.
Right.
So if you want that, again, hop back and find our character meal episode. And then Oga's Canteen I took off because it's not truly an ADR sit-down meal. They don't have exactly. So I was like, well, we're not going to really touch on that, especially if we're talking about with kids. Like, that atmosphere is super fun and it's great, but it's much more of an adult area.
You don't even get to sit down most of the time. Like, literally sit down.
Right, exactly. They do serve alcoholic beverages primarily there, so again, not really a place that you're going to necessarily take your kids unless it's just a quick stop in the afternoon for some place to kind of get away from the sun. not really truly the ADRs in the sense that what we're kind of looking to dive into for this episode.
I will mention that it is, if your kids are huge Star Wars fans, it's worth it to do that for them because they'll get it. But if they're not, if they're like, oh, it's fine. I like Star Wars, but I'm not like in love with it. It's probably a skip because it's really expensive.
Yes, so. Do that on your solo trip or your couples trip or your adults only trip or any combination of that. But with the family, maybe not.
Yeah.
So because of that, yes, there were really only truly 5 options. So we are going to touch on all 5 in this episode. You will find that maybe doesn't necessarily mean that we suggest all 5, but we are going to talk about all 5 and give you what those options are since we are talking about 5 per park.
Yeah. And so I feel like I love that you have this one listed first because this one is one of my favorites to go with my family, which is the 50s Primetime Cafe, which we've gone to several times actually. And it is very much a 1950s vibe, like you've traveled back in time to the atomic age, as they used to call it. And the land where you would watch TV as you would eat your TV dinner, so to speak. Yeah. So it's very much themed exactly like retro 1950s everything. And then your servers are so personable and that they kind of treat you like you're like a cousin. They're cousins of you. And so they're not afraid to like tell you to take your elbows off the table and like help if you clean your plate. In the past, we've gotten I cleaned my plate sticker for if you ate all your food. But if you tried, like my dad had fried chicken or something and he like put his napkin on top of his fried chicken when he was done with his plate. And they're like, are you trying to hide the fact that you didn't finish your vegetables?
Oh, called out.
So that's the kind of vibe that you'll get in there. It's very much like time traveling and it's very fun in that way. That the servers are just so much fun. But do you want to talk about the food a little bit in the menu?
Yeah. So 50s Primetime Cafe does have lunch and dinner. So they do serve both. For kids, again, focused on kids with this series. I scrolled too far. There we go. They have 4 different options for kiddos on their menu. They've got Goofy's salmon. They've got a Sloppy Joe sandwich. They've got Grandpa's grilled chicken and Aunt Betty's chicken strips. So again, that family type atmosphere from all of the lovely cast members on the inside transfers through the menu as well. So a pretty decent menu for kiddos, but it's definitely something you've got to look at. They don't have mac and cheese, which if you remember from our initial episode with
I thought they did.
They do as a side, so it's not as like a main entree.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you remember, that was one that we talked about a lot of the places having to offer. So they have it as a side, but they don't have it as a full course, or a main entree, according to the menu. So, but if you've got kiddos that'll
ask for it,
probably
they might sub it. I feel like we did.
Yeah. Probably for your kiddo who is a mac and cheese fanatic.
Indeed. Yeah.
So again,
that's just what he wanted, and like they made it happen.
Yeah. And a place like that is going to be a lot easier to do that at. They have a lot more flexibility probably with some of that. But they do have, as far as sides, they do have the mac and cheese. They've got different kinds of veggies and things like that. So again, a fairly decent menu for kiddos to go there, and the theming is really, really great. As far as prices go, you're looking anywhere from $12.50 to $14.50, which will sound exactly in line with what we've been talking about with most of these ADR locations. The salmon is $14.50 and the grilled chicken is $13.50. The other 2 are $12.50. So some different options there for pricing as well.
And I will mention that we are showing a few pictures as we go here, but Disney Food Blog is where they're coming from. So a little shout out to them since we are using some of their photos for this content since we have not eaten in all of these places. But they do really great food reviews. So if you're looking for some input and making some more decisions about these places, they're a great resource for you. But yes, like they have the salmon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got someone over here saying, I don't know very many kids that eat salmon. My oldest actually really likes fish.
Yeah,
mine can be particular. So, it's just one of those things where your kid, and if they'll eat salmon, sloppy Joe, grilled chicken, or chicken strips, you know that you're good to go, knowing that they can maybe get a side of mac and cheese and they've got a couple different veggie options. So, again, with all of these, we're giving you kind of the factual information. You guys know your kids and you know your family and you know what type of food they're going to eat. So maybe you look at that and go, nope, there is nothing on there that my kiddo would like. Then don't go, you guys know best what is going to be best for your travel party. So we're just doing our best to give the information.
It's true. And I have to say, I've tried the pot roast, the meatloaf, and the fried chicken there, and all three were really good. So in terms of the adult menu, I found lots of things that I thought were delicious to eat.
That's always helpful too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want my kids to enjoy their meal, but I also want to enjoy my meal. Maybe it can't be selfish, but I think that's important that the whole family is happy with what they're eating. So
I would say so, yeah. So I would definitely say that 50s Primetime gets the Mom Street stamp of approval for Hollywood Studios. Mm-hmm. Shall we go on to our next one on our list?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about the Hollywood Brown Derby. And this was one that Kate was like, wait, that's on our list. I was like, remember, we're talking about all 5 of them. So again, 5 locations for ADRs for kids in Hollywood Studios. So Hollywood Brown Derby is one of those. They do have lunch and dinner. Kate, do you have any thoughts on the Hollywood Brown Derby? I have a feeling you do.
I will say that this is a lovely location for adults. I think that it is really, it has a lot of really cool history in terms of like it's what it was in LA and all these kinds of things. But and then they have caricatures of different celebrities on the walls, and they have a really cool book on the front of like famous people who have come to the Hollywood Brown Derby in Hollywood Studios and actually signed it. So there's some really interesting things there. I will say that my husband loved this place. It's definitely a good one for foodies, but I would not it wouldn't be my first choice to go with my kids. Maybe because the atmosphere is definitely a little bit upscale, a little bit more adult focused. Not as much for them to maybe like look at and like take in. And then the food tends to lean that way too. But, as with any Disney restaurant, kids are usually welcome there.
Yes.
I'm always very conscious of like, are my kids going to ruin somebody else's like anniversary dinner with their behavior?
That's so hard. Yeah. I've got a couple people here saying that they probably wouldn't necessarily. Our friend Becca said, I personally wouldn't take little ones to eat there. So again, nothing against the restaurant, just maybe not quite as kid-friendly as some of the other options.
Yeah, it's a really cool place though if you ever get to eat there just as an adult. And you can take kids there, but whether or not it's family friendly, so do you want to talk about the food that's there a little bit?
Yep. I'll just briefly talk over kind of this menu. They have a really kind of interesting menu. And I think some of this plays on to what their adult menu looks like versus also wanting kids to be able to join in on the meal. So they have 5 different options on their kiddo menu. They have a grilled chicken breast. They have grilled seasonal fish. They have a grilled beef fillet. And then they have a hot dog and they have mac and cheese. So you can see it's kind of like there's like almost like 2 parts to their menu, because all of that grilled options, the chicken, the fish, the beef, that's a little bit more on the lines of what you would see on like an adult menu. And those are going to run you $17.50 and $16.50. So those are going to be much more expensive than some of the other options that you see. But then you look at the hot dog on their menu, that's $9.25, and their mac and cheese is $11.50. So it's literally like they have like a 2-tiered kids menu.
Yeah, which makes sense. And, but the adult menu is also really good. Like they have charcuterie, and they've got, they have the Cobb salad, which is what they're known for, which was invented at the Brown Derby. There's a whole story behind that, which I won't get into right now. But again, it's like a really fun place for cocktails and, charcuterie for adults, but it's just not necessarily kid vibes.
Yes. And I think it sounds like, we've got another person in my chat saying not exactly kid friendly. So again, might be one of those places to save for your solo trip, your adult trip, your couple trip, your whatever combination that maybe doesn't involve as many children.
Yes. So that being said, shall we move on to one that maybe is a little bit more kid-friendly?
Yes, let's.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Mama Melrose, which I admittedly have not dined at because I've heard so many negative things about it in the past.
No.
It's just never been something that I have chosen to book. However, in reading through some of the reviews, I could see, why people might want to eat there because it's very much like a kind of like nostalgic. It's very much a nostalgic Italian-American kind of eatery, those kinds of vibes with it. Do you want to talk about the food a little bit? And I'll pull up a picture too.
Yes. So Mama Melrose does do lunch and dinner. They've got 5 options on their kids menu. And exactly like what Kate said, it's really a great mix of different kind of standard kids meal American food. So they've got a whole wheat spaghetti with meat sauce. They've got a grilled chicken breast. They've got cheese pizza. They've got chicken parmesan over spaghetti, and then spaghetti or penne. So it leans towards the Italian side when it comes to that, but definitely some good options for kids. It's just a matter of if you're willing to kind of put maybe some of the questionable reviews aside and give it a try.
It gives me like Olive Garden vibes, like for real. Like the soup here, this is very much like Olive Garden vibes.
Yeah. And I will say price point is good. It's right in line. The cheese pizza is $12. The majority of the other entrees are $13 for kids, and the grilled chicken is $14. So again, very, very much in line with what we've seen at other locations. But just one of those things that you gotta just decide. I will say it is fun. They have something called a spaghetti and meatball cupcake on their menu, which
I don't know if they have a picture of that.
I'm assuming it's a cupcake, so like obviously it's like decorations and frosting and icing, but I just thought, I was like, oh, that's kind of fun, a fun option for a fun little dessert for the kiddos.
Yeah, it's I think I found it. Oh, it's cute. Okay, I will say it's cute. I can't make it bigger. Here we go. It looks like this.
Oh yeah, see, look, it is.
It looks like it's bleeding vanilla.
Yeah, but it does kind of. The red sauce is a little runnier than maybe. But yeah, it's definitely like a just like a buttercream frosting with like maybe a jam of some sort almost for the red sauce, and then a meatball of some, like a cake meatball almost is what it looks like.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
Little shavings of maybe some kind of sugar
or chocolate, maybe like a white chocolate.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It
looks cute.
I don't know.
It looks cute. So make that decision as you will. Our friend Todd over here is saying we had a very good experience at Mama Melrose as adults. So
there you go.
Again, it's so hard to tell with Disney, and we've talked about this a little bit, but some of these menu items come and go. Sometimes the quality ebbs and flows. A lot of that, especially after the world changed with the pandemic. Unfortunately, we had a lot of supply issues just in general across the board, and Disney was affected by that too. So some of these menu items, maybe they had no choice but to adjust the quality because supply was such an issue. I do feel like we are on our way up kind of from that, especially when looking at Disney menus too. That, keeping some of that in mind and giving some of these places a try. We talked about that in Magic Kingdom with Tony's Town Square and how their menu has improved from what we've heard, so there's a lot of that also to
all the Italian restaurants are getting better.
Apparently, maybe Italian food was a major issue in the supply chain. And Stevie makes a good point. She's mentioning over here, I feel like so much of any restaurant experience is dependent on the cast members too, and that can be very, very true as well. Food aside, the atmosphere, the servers, things like that can make a big impact on your experience as well.
And I will say for Mama Melrose, everything that I read about it, I was like, okay, like this is all the things I've heard about it were from a while ago. So what are people saying about it recently? And it seems like the reviews are like, it's great for families. It's great for kids. It's a little bit loud. So that probably is good for families with kids, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're not going to worry about your kid being loud. And they also said that it's a hearty meal. You're gonna get filled up if you go, because it's pasta. It's a lot of carbs, right?
Right.
And it also is maybe like some of it's just okay. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like write home about it amazing food, but it's a solid options that are pretty good Italian. That I think that it's a solid option for families with kids, I think, and not too terribly expensive. So
and it's theme park food.
Yeah.
Like ultimately all of the majority of what we're talking about, we have to continue to remember we're not talking about dining in Italy. We're talking about an Italian type restaurant in the middle of Hollywood Studios in Orlando, Florida. You know, so like we have to also keep that in mind when we're looking at the quality of the food. Now, that doesn't mean that we as guests at the parks don't deserve to have really good food. That doesn't mean that at all, but we have to kind of understand that both can be true to an extent, and we may have to give and take a little bit on either side.
Yeah, but that's where, for me though, if I'm going to spend a lot of money, because this does cost a lot of money, I'm probably not going to eat in places where the food was just okay.
Right.
That's like me personally. Now, I'm not saying that the food is that way now there. I don't know for sure because I haven't eaten there. But I will say that I'm going to search out the places where like I know the food's going to be really good. Yes. Or at least hopefully will be really good.
Right. Or you've heard the majority have been positive reviews instead of questionable reviews.
Yes, exactly. Or places we've been to before and loved, that we want to go back to, which I think brings us to our next one on our list, which is Roundup Rodeo Barbecue. Yes. Which actually I feel like is a little bit controversial about how much people liked it or not.
I agree with that. So let's see what we think about it as we discuss. Let's give you a little bit of info on it, and then we can give some opinions. They do lunch and dinner at Roundup Rodeo, and it is an all-you-care-to-enjoy family-style dining experience. Now, I will mention this menu has slightly changed recently. They took some of the options off from what they had before. So I'm going to read you the current menu, and then we can go from there. And Kate is showing some photos of the atmosphere.
Yeah, I will say that it is very, very heavily themed Toy Story. So it's like being shrunk down into Andy's room, and you are a toy. And there's a lot of really fun I won't spoil all the fun things that happen, but there's some fun things that happen while you're in there, and they use with the lights and like overhead voices and the servers. And so there's some really, really fun theming in there, especially for kids. But do you want to talk about the food a little bit? Yes.
So again, this is family style, all you care to enjoy. So they do have a bread service that is cheddar biscuits with sweet pepper jelly. Their greens options right now are a tomato salad. So it's cucumbers, onion, and tomatoes. And then the watermelon salad with mint. Their main course options right now, they have a standard option and then a plant-based option. So the standard option comes with, and I have to read these because they have such fun themed names. So it's Evil Doctor Smoked Ribs, Buttercup's Beef Brisket. There's a sausage in my boot, fired grilled pork sausage, barbecue chicken with style, and buckin baked beans. And then they do have a plant-based option that is combat cauliflower with harissa drizzle and walnut gremolata. Yeah. Scrumptious bratwurst, a rip-roaring rib chop, and a buckin baked beans. So that's your plant-based option on that side. For the sides, they have potato barrels, they have a veggie slaw, they have slinky dogs, mac and cheese. They have, again, the baked beans, and then a cowpoke corn on the cob. They do have the cutest little desserts. I don't know, Kate, if you have any photos of the desserts.
Yes.
And they have a Bo's lemon and blueberry cheesecake, Billy's chocolate silk pie, Goat's apple pie, Gruff's peach strawberry pie. So if you get it, it's Billy, Goat, and Gruff for those things. And then cupcake a la Forky with a little Forky character stuck on the inside.
Yeah, so, I will say that
super fun.
The plant-based option of those desserts was like the secret winner, like of all those ones that I tried, because I did try all of the desserts, and that one blew me away, actually, how good it was.
Okay, so let's talk about the meal, because I feel like we gotta break this down. This is the newest option. I will also just mention for Hollywood Studios. I went, let's see, when was that? In May. So it opened in like February or March, I want to say.
I don't know.
Like around a year ago it opened. I went in May. They had a few more options on the menu that are no longer on the menu. The biscuits were delicious.
With pepper jelly.
I didn't care for the jelly, but I'm very picky. The biscuits were delicious.
Pepper jelly wasn't spicy. Yeah, I don't like spicy things, so it's just more like a sweet pepper jelly.
But those biscuits, they were so good. I liked the watermelon. I did not care for our onion and cucumber and tomato. It was very oniony to the point where it was like almost inedible. So I was like, no. Becca and I went together, and Becca and I were both like, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's not good.
So, as far as the main course that they brought out with all of the different meat options, the sausage was my favorite of all of those. The rest of them were kind of lackluster. They weren't super impressive to me.
Like, you really needed the sauces that they have on the table to make
That's true. They do bring you several different options for sauce.
If you don't use the sauce, some of them are a little bit on the dry side.
Yes, that's very true. And I'm not a huge sauce person.
Yeah,
I use sauce. I'm not a huge sauce person, so that probably affected somewhat of that. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, it is what it is when it comes to that. We had some quality issues, like in consistency of like things that we had more than like one serving of, that was like a little up and down, a little hit or miss when it came to the food there. The sides were fairly good. The mac and cheese I liked a lot. That was like both Becca and I's favorite whenever we went, was the mac and cheese. And the rest of the options were, they were decent. They weren't anything to write home about, but it was decent park food.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been there now twice. So I went very shortly after it opened, and then I went there a couple months later. And I would say that my experiences were different both times, partially because people started stealing the giant pencils that you used to sign the bill. So we didn't even get
them.
No, they don't have them anymore.
May.
They took them away.
Someone said that it opened in March, so by May they were gone already.
That's why we can't have nice things. People steal gigantic pencils. I don't even know how. Put it under their coat. Always wear a coat in Florida. I don't know. What's happening?
Who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, I will say that the first time I had like the pickle fries were like my favorite thing ever. They were so good, and we had like 2 or 3 servings of them. But when I had it in my next trip, they were like these little round slices instead of like spears. And so they were hard and like chewy and like not good. And so, but somebody told me the next week they had the spears again. So it could just be like a supply issue. So it seems like to me, a lot of the other food was great. Like I thought the watermelon salad was just watermelon. So I didn't, it was fine. But it was like, if you like watermelon.
Right. Right.
And
I will mention that the pickles are not even on the menu anymore.
Oh man, see, because they probably had supply issues.
Yeah.
And then like, was the corn on the menu anymore? Or did they take that off?
Yes, the corn is on the menu still. Grilled street corn, cow pork corn on the cob.
Yeah, that was not nobody at our table was really a fan of that. So it was really interesting. But we thought the meal was good enough that we would go back. I think it's extremely fun for kids. I think you have to count in the atmosphere for this. Yes. So as long as there's 100%. one or two things your kid would really love to eat in this, I think it's worth at least going once. Just kind of like Cinderella's Royal Table. But it is spendy, and you just kind of go in knowing that it probably will be good. You might not like everything you get, but there'll probably be a few things that you do really enjoy. Unless you're just really not picky, in which case you'll have a great time.
Right, exactly. And speaking of price, we hadn't mentioned that yet. So it is $25 per child. And again, that child range is ages 3 to 9. So if you're calculating that out. And then it is $45 per adult, just throwing that information out there if you're looking at that for your family. And again, the atmosphere is so much fun.
Yeah.
So if you've got Toy Story fans, or if you're really debating about it, it's definitely worth doing once, I would say.
If it's in your budget. Yeah, it's spendy. My kids really want to go to it. And I'm just like, oh, it's so much money.
Yeah. I mean, when you multiply that out by how many people you're taking, it adds up real fast.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah. I will mention that the desserts that they had were all really, really good.
The desserts were great.
So that
cupcakes were adorable.
Yeah. The Forky cupcake was a standard Disney cupcake. You know, it wasn't anything amazing, but some of the other ones were really, really good. And we talked briefly earlier about how cast members can really make or break it. We had an amazing server when we went, and it was just Becca and I. So it was so much fun. We sat like right by the kitchen, and she totally played into it. But she had come from 50s prime time before she moved over to Toy Story. So we got a little bit kind of both almost. But she was so much fun, and she like definitely made our trip there super fun.
I love that.
It was a good time for sure. So again, that's the down low on Roundup Rodeo.
Yeah.
So take the information for what it's worth. And again, that's one that I would try at least once.
I will say they like have you start with a couple of sides, but you're allowed to order as many of them as you want. So if you like order, the 2 or 3 sides or whatever, and you're like, I don't like any of these, you can get other ones. So keep that in mind, that you're not stuck. And you can also order multiple ones of the desserts as well if you want to try more than one. So don't feel limited. You're paying a lot for it. So eat away.
Yeah. We were very indecisive about what dessert we wanted. And our waitress was like, I'm just going to bring them all for you. And we were like, okay, thanks.
It's nice to be able to try them all too, because they're small. Yeah. They're really small. So
yeah, they come in these cute little glasses, like parfait style. You can see all the little layers. It's cute.
Mm-hmm. Well, that being said, should we move on to one that's a definite win for families?
Yes, let's talk about sci-fi dining.
This one is really fun. We should talk about the theming first, because the theming is really what makes the difference here. It's basically like going to a drive-in movie at twilight in like the 1950s, and they have not full sci-fi movies. They have like clips of sci-fi movies interspersed with commercials, interspersed with like some Disney stuff here and there. It's very weird mix of stuff. I've watched it through a couple of times.
Yes, it is. And it's like cheesy horror, like sci-fi. Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this restaurant is it's the quietest one you will dine in any Disney park. Because everybody's just sitting in their, what they look like little makeshift vehicles. They seat you, and a lot of them are just straight up facing forward towards the screen like you would in a car. They do have a couple ones where you sit on the side, especially for ADA needs and things like that. So there are other options. But like my kids sat like in the first 2 rows, and we sat in the back seat, and we were like, this is nice. Because the kids were entertained, and we were just in the back like we're having a date. So I really love this place.
And I do think I will say, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, there is some good and bad when it comes to that, because I know for my instance with my family, my oldest would not be able to handle the stimulation of the giant screen while he was supposed to be eating.
That's fair. He would just not eat.
Yeah, he would just sit and stare, and he would not eat, and it would become a frustration. So just, again, your kids, what they need. My kiddo's ADHD could not handle sci-fi, unfortunately. So
I think it's
something to keep in mind.
It's also interesting, though, for people who maybe have sensory needs, who need a quieter environment, and that is actually good for them. This is one I definitely recommend, because you can have a relatively quiet meal, because everybody knows everybody else is trying to watch the movie, like in a real movie theater. So everybody just, if they talk, they do it really quietly, which is so weird. But it's great. And I'm happy that it exists.
Yeah. So it is a little bit of both, but for the majority of people, that would probably be a super fun option. And like Kate said, you sit in these little like cars that are all themed. And again, it's just such a fun theming from literally when you walk in the door.
Yeah, and they kind of tell you you're going back in time as you walk around into the theater. It's really neat.
Yeah, super fun.
So do we want to talk about the food options, which I think are also very family friendly?
Absolutely, they are. So for your kiddo, they have 5 options on their kids menu. They've got a chicken skewer, they've got chicken bites, they've got macaroni and cheese, a cheeseburger, and a hamburger. So really standard options. You've got your chicken options, your burger options, your mac and cheese options. So definitely options for the majority of kiddos, I would say, would be able to find something to eat here.
Yeah, it's definitely like a burger place. Like I've had a couple of really good burgers there. So that's usually what I recommend. And it also, I think they also have shakes there as well. So it's very much like 1950s burgers and shakes kind of vibe. So
yeah, exactly. And price point wise, right in the middle of where we've seen pretty much everything, $11.50 to $13.50 here. So again, the majority of what we've seen have been in that price range. So this falls right in line. They've got lots of different side options, lots of different veggie options. They do have, a lot of these places we haven't mentioned because we're not reading word for word everything on the menu, but a lot of these options will have like special character cups for kids and things like that. So if you're looking to splurge a little and have something fun like that for your kiddos, a lot of these places do have those. But yeah, then yes, this location specifically does have a lot of really good milkshakes as well.
Yes, that's usually when I get there. It's a burger and a milkshake. So that's my favorite. So so I think that this one, as long as your kid is not going to get distracted by the TV, I think this one definitely earns a Mom Street stamp of approval for family friendliness, for atmosphere, and for food.
I agree. And this is one that even with my kiddo, we would probably try it, and we would just know going into it as parents that we were probably going to lose the battle.
Yeah, maybe you go to it for like a dessert or an appetizer or something. It's like you're not going to have to fight them to eat an entire meal. Just like give them a piece of your appetizer or something. So I don't think there's any
bribe them with a milkshake. Dinner. Right. Yeah. Just bribe them with a milkshake. Do what you got to do, right? I will say I've got a question over here that I think is good. I gotta find it though. Oh my gosh. Sharon is asking, I can't decide between Sci-Fi and Roundup Rodeo. What would we choose between those two? So I wanted to take that question. I know they are. And I really think it depends on the theming that you're looking for and the style of food. Because with Roundup Rodeo,
totally different.
Yeah, with Roundup Rodeo, you've got Toy Story, you've got more of like the smoked barbecue style, and it's more expensive. Sci-Fi, you've got the total 50s drive-in vibe with, burgers and chicken and mac and cheese for your kids and quite a bit lower of a price point. I think they're both solid options. I think you'll probably be happy with either, honestly.
Yeah, and if your kid is like a huge Toy Story fan, then it's a no-brainer. If they're not, if you're trying to stay on a budget, go Sci-Fi. But if your family is a big toy, or you are a very big Toy Story fan, I would probably go there just to try it out because it is a really unique dining experience. Yeah. But you won't be disappointed. I agree. You won't be disappointed with either one. You'll have a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of experiences, before we end our time at Hollywood Studios, I did just want to mention something that comes with kind of the dining here, and those are the Fantasmic dining packages. Again, I just want to mention these just to give you that information while we're talking about ADRs, because all of the locations that we just talked about do offer Fantasmic dining packages. So basically what that means is you get your ADR, and then you also get reserved seating for Fantasmic, which is the nighttime show at Hollywood Studios, if you're not familiar. I did just want to mention that the prices do change, and they are like a set price if you're doing it through the Fantasmic dining packages. So for something like we just got done talking about Sci-Fi Dine-In, we were talking about how the range is anywhere between $11.50 to $13.50 per kiddo. If you're looking at that option for the Fantasmic, it's $23 per child.
Right.
So there is a price difference there, but it does give you that reserved seating. So if Fantasmic is something that is like top of your list, super important for you, and you know you're already going to be eating at one of these locations, then I would definitely look into something like that, or look into kind of the logistics of it. I don't know that I would necessarily suggest booking an ADR just to get Fantasmic seating. I don't know that it's worth it, and I don't know that you need to. Just do a little bit of planning and get there early. So
yeah, as long as you get there early, that's always the key, because it does fill up and then you get locked out. So don't plan on getting there right before showtime, and then you'll probably be golden most shows, most nights. But that's really good to know about, though, that is an option in case you do plan on getting there a little bit last minute, but you don't want to go sit early. That this is a great option then for that. I was just thinking, my brain, where my brain went when you said Fantasmic dining packages. I know what they are. I've been around. I've used them before in other circumstances, but I was like, how cool would it be if you could pay for one of these dining packages and be on like Steamboat Willie and like doing the like scarf thing with the characters?
That would be worth a lot.
You would have to pay a lot more than this.
You would. I
was like, how amazing would that be, though?
That would be really cool. That would be really cool. I do want to mention, I misspoke, and I just don't want our listeners to be confused. Roundup Rodeo does not offer Fantasmic packages, but Hollywood and Vine does. So I was looking at the list. I was like, oh, there's 5 options. We talked about 5 options. I misspoke. So want to clarify that the options for Fantasmic are 50s Primetime, Hollywood and Vine, which is a character meal we did not discuss tonight, but have discussed previously, Mama Melrose, Sci-Fi, and Brown Derby.
Yeah. Well, all that being said, should we try to tackle Epcot?
Okay.
This one was a challenge, and I will say it's a challenge for Jackie because she did most of the work on this one. So kudos to Jackie for that.
Yes.
And some of these I have never eaten at before, but I do know some things about them. So as we go through them, and our live audience can also chime in if you have eaten here with your family, and you have things to say about it. We would love to hear what you think.
Yes. So basically, the way that we started this research was straight off the Disney website, I'm looking at locations. So we're doing it by park, but the park plus kind of the resort area. So if you know anything about Epcot and the Epcot resort area, it is a very large area. There are a lot of resorts included, and Epcot itself has so many food options. And we're not even talking character meals. We're not even talking festival food booths at Epcot. None of that. These are strictly
not
ADRs.
quick service.
No.
That would be so long. It would be hundreds.
All of that being said, when I pulled up the Epcot list, there were 32 options for the Epcot and Epcot.
We're going to talk about them all. No, just kidding.
Oh gosh,
we're going to not talk about
how much time we got.
Yeah. So then from there, you really did do a lot of narrowing down, a lot of asking some of our Mom Street community what are the ones that they loved. And you asked me, like, what would you change about this list or alter about this list? And I think that we've come up with a pretty good list of specifically family-friendly meals, not necessarily ones that adults would 100% love and go for all the time.
Right. Yes.
It's very important that we say that.
Yes. So that being said, we have not narrowed it down to 5 because it was just nearly impossible without leaving off ones that were really good options. So for Epcot, we've got, I think, 7 options, and then we'll talk about a couple honorable mentions at the end. Because we
7-ish.
I know. Oh my gosh. We can't leave them off. And we truly want you guys to have this information and have all the options. And there are just so many good options. And it's just really hard.
Yeah, that's true. So that being said, These are not just in Epcot, but also Epcot area. So our first one is in an Epcot resort, which is right next to Epcot, and that is Beaches and Cream at Beach Club.
Yes. So the Beach Club is literally right outside of International Gateway, outside of Epcot. And I will say I was pleasantly surprised because I had never looked at the like full menu for Beaches and Cream because they are very well known for their ice cream. So it was fun to look, and I was like, oh, they have a lot of really great options. So let's talk about the kids meal options. On their menu, they've got 5 different options. They've got a grilled chicken sandwich, they've got a turkey sandwich, they've got macaroni and cheese, a hot dog, and a cheeseburger. So really standard options. In a super cute little environment when it comes to kind of the decor and the theming and all of that. But so definitely a really solid option if you're in Epcot.
Yeah, all the reviews that I have ever read about this place have been like, this is the sleeper one that nobody knows that is amazing. And I've always heard about it too for ice cream. I think that they have that with the kitchen sink one that has like 8 scoops of ice cream with like everything in it. That's what I've always thought about when I think of Beaches and Cream. Right. But looking at the menu, I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually a pretty solid bet for families. The food looks really good there, not just the ice cream.
Yeah, and I will say I like their selections also on their like the sides that you get with the kids meal, because they've got like grapes, carrots, watermelon, yogurt. Like they've got a lot of different options that you don't always see at ADRs, especially. You see some of those options more at like quick service with kids meals, but I like that they have them here. And of course, they've got all sorts of ice cream and milkshakes and sundaes and all that good stuff.
Do they still have these cookie fries? I'm looking at these.
Let me look. Let's see.
They're these little cookie fries with like dipping sauces for cookie sticks.
There's so many. There's
Sorry.
so
I just threw that at you.
Like no, you're fine. There's so many. Okay, yes. 1 scoop of ice cream with chocolate cookies and a cherry. So that looks like the Mickey Mouse sundae, maybe?
No, this is definitely something else.
Oh, no,
no place else.
Okay.
But I'm like, it looks good. It has marshmallow, chocolate,
cookie fries, yes. Cookie fries with dipping sauce. They are plant-based, for your information. Okay. And they are $8.50 on the dessert menu.
They look really cute. I was like,
those are cute. Yes, so they've got all sorts. See, it was that hard for me to find it because they've got so many delicious options. And when it comes to just briefly for the adult menu here, they've got burgers, they've got a grilled cheese, they've got a cheddar bacon rich chicken sandwich, a French dip sandwich, a Reuben. So it's that kind of style that you get whenever you're going here. And again, like Kate said, this may be a sleeper option. And it looks like someone in here was saying that it's one that is a good, it's fairly easy to get, not easy, but doable maybe to get the ADR for there.
Yeah, that's true. I've even gotten that with a reservation finder, like very last minute before. Mm-hmm. So it is a good one. Yeah. Do we have anything else to say about Beaches and Cream?
I don't remember if I said prices, so let me run down those just briefly. You're looking anywhere from $10.50 to $12.50. So on that lower end kind of the what we're typically seeing for the standard kids prices.
Alrighty. Well, shall we move on to the next one? Do you want to talk about that one real quick?
Yes. So while we said we were not discussing character meals, we are going to discuss a location that has a character meal, but not during dinner. So we're going to talk about Cape May Cafe. So it does have a character breakfast. We're not talking about the character breakfast right now. We're talking about the dinner. And their dinner is a buffet style dining experience there. It is $27 per child. And the really interesting thing about this buffet that I thought was cool was they have like a specific children's buffet.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
So like they have the standard buffet that anybody can eat off of that's got soup, salad, a carving station, fried seafood, New England steam boil with clams, mussels, and shrimp, roasted chicken. They've got all sorts of stuff. But then they've got classic favorites for children specifically on their buffet where they've got pizza, mac and cheese, a chicken, and a pasta option as well. So I thought that was super interesting, and you don't always see that at buffets. So it was really nice to see that they had like a kid-specific option on their buffet.
They have lobster.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Like a full-on lobster.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I see Bree says, I love Cape May, incredible dinner. And Samantha also says, I love that place. So
Yeah.
we have some
And
fans of Cape May over here.
And our friend Lemuel at Magic Pants and Trash Cans is over here saying, can confirm I take from the kids' buffet sometimes when I am there, especially the mac and cheese.
That's really saying something for Lem.
Yeah. Yeah. He said it is awkward, though, because I got to crouch down to get the mac and cheese.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. But yeah, so just really fun to see that they have that option on their menu. I was not expecting that when I was scrolling down through. So definitely fun, and maybe a fun way to kind of introduce your kids to some of these. It's very seafood heavy, but obviously you're at Cape May Cafe, so it makes sense, with the theming and the vibe. But it's a fun way that you could maybe introduce your kiddos to some of this food, or maybe you think that they'll like it, but you're not 100% sure, but it's something that you really want. That may be a really great option to have. So that way they could maybe sample a little, but still, they have something they're going to eat too.
Yeah. I'm reading the things I've read about it. It's a really great place if you like seafood. If you're like not a huge seafood person, there's less options for that, but obviously still some. But
yes,
it's definitely very seafood heavy. So if you're a seafood family, this is a great one to go to. And I agree. It's nice that your kids can kind of like try a couple of things and maybe venture out a little bit and, try something new. I think that's a great option.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of like if you're on a cruise ship, and you get to go and do the buffet there, like on the Disney Cruise Line and things. So my kids loved doing that. So they would probably love this experience too, of like the independence of getting to like choose their dinner.
Yes. Yes. So fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
I love that.
So yeah, if you're at Beach Club, you've got two really solid choices between Cape May Cafe and Beaches and Cream. So definitely check those out if you're over there.
Well, shall we head into Epcot and talk about some options in there?
Yeah.
Why don't you chat about this one? I'll see if I can find some photos of it.
So I left this one on here because I thought it was a good, solid option that maybe is a little unique, but not too exploratory that kids wouldn't like it. So that is the Nine Dragons restaurant. They do lunch and dinner. They have a smaller kids menu here. They've only got 3 options, but I think the 3 options are good options if your kiddo likes this style of food. So on their kids menu, they've got honey chicken nuggets. They've got a sweet and sour shrimp with lo mein noodles. And then they've got a kids deluxe meal that is shrimp, chicken, carrots, broccoli, and vegetable egg fried rice. So again, one of those things where if your kiddo likes this palette, it's a really good option for kids. And they've got a really good, menu for adults here as well. Price point, you're looking at anywhere 10, 11, or 13. So again, right in that same range that we've seen for pretty much everywhere else that we've talked about where you're picking entrees off the menu.
Yeah, and this is one where I was like, I don't know if I would ever recommend this one. Mainly because I've heard a lot this is like it's just kind of like standard Chinese food. And again, though, it might have gotten better by I've just kind of written it off by this point. But it does sound like if your kids like kind of your standard Chinese food, they might be really happy there. So I don't think it's one we have to totally write off, but
no.
And especially at that price point, it's pretty affordable for a family to have that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Lem is over here saying the menu has gotten better and that they have newer, closer to authentic options now.
That's good.
So less Americanized Chinese food, more authentic. So again, it's like we've talked about even just earlier in this episode, we're slowly getting there when it comes to the menus. And I think Disney is trying because I think they know that people are calling for wanting better menus and more elevated options at some of these places. We're never going to get it all, right? Like it's just not going to happen. But
Christina says it changed ownership at some point recently since the world changed. So that's likely. a lot of this is like from a long time ago. I was like, well, this doesn't look like something I'd want to do. And then I just never did it. So maybe this will get me out of my comfort zone and try a few new places.
Right.
It's always good. Right.
Right. Exactly. So again, one of those things where you got to kind of decide if you're willing to take the chance and give it a try, or if it's an absolute no-go because it's questionable anyway. You know your kids, you know your preference, make a decision based on that.
So shall we travel over to Mexico?
Yes, and now for something completely different. So let's talk about the San Angel Inn. They do have lunch and dinner options, and this is the one that is inside the pyramid in the Mexico Pavilion. I do briefly just want to mention that there is like a secondary option across the way along the water. Their menus are very, very similar. Their kids' menus are almost identical. So I chose I made the choice to to focus on the one inside the pyramid because I think the theming and the atmosphere in there is super fun. So take that for what it's worth.
Yes, this one's really interesting. I have eaten here with my family. The thing that everybody always says about it is it's so dark in there. Like,
yes, and it is. It is very dark. I will not argue.
It's extremely dark. And my in-laws had to use like their cell phone flashlight in order to see the menu. And so it's extremely dark. So it's part of the vibes in there though, because it's supposed to be twilight with a boat ride going by, and so I get why it's like that, but it's it's very hard to see anything.
And I will say, when we ate here, and I've told this story before on Mom Street, so apologies for repeating, but I feel like it's important. When we ate here, my kiddos were little enough that I needed to help them like prep their plate whenever it came. So like cutting things and things like that. It was very difficult to do because it was so dark. Now that my kids are older, it wouldn't be so bad because I don't have to like cut their stuff, but it's still very dark. So keep that in mind. Again, this is on here because it does have some good Mexican food options for your kiddos. If that is their thing or your thing, that is an option. We did have a friend on our Discord say that their kiddo said that they had the best chicken tenders here. So take that for what it's worth as well. But their menu consists of beef tacos, chicken tacos, quesadillas, a grilled chicken breast, chicken tenders, and mac and cheese.
Yeah. And it is a really fun atmosphere to dine in. It's very relaxing. It definitely gives me more date night vibes than like family dinner vibes. But there is some really good options for families there. So I think like in terms of the food, and it's not like so quiet or anything where your kids are going to disturb anything, because inside that area, there's a lot going on with boat rides and people moving around. So
yes,
just like in terms of like the lighting, the atmosphere definitely gives you a little bit more.
Right. And maybe you could ask for like a second. They have like the little candles on the tables. Yeah. Maybe just ask for another little candle on your table. That would be my suggestion for that.
Yeah. No, I don't think you need to be worried about your kids ruining the vibe for others at this one in particular. Maybe like other places, like we said, the Brown Derby, and there's some other places that are definitely more upscale. This one, it just gives a vibe that it is kind of more of a romantic date night. But your kids aren't going to ruin anything there because it is fairly loud in that area. So don't we worry about that.
Yes. As far as price point, the prices are a little bit more spread out on this one. They go from 12 to 6 up to 16. The beef tacos are 16. So again, one of those things where if you're looking at your different options there to keep in mind.
Yes. I was trying to find a picture. It took me that long to find a picture of it. I don't have like a great one here. But you can see what it looks like.
Yes. Yeah. So if you've ridden the Three Caballeros ride, this is the restaurant that you go right by when you're in line and when you go on the at the very beginning of your boat ride.
It's kind of like the equivalent of Blue Bayou in Disneyland, except not next to pirates, and the food's totally different. But the vibe is the same. You're next
Something
to
like
a
that.
Water ride with a boat going by. Yes.
Something like that. So again, maybe not a top option for kiddos, but definitely a solid option if your kiddo is a fan of that style of food.
Yes. So shall we move on to our next one?
Yes, we're just jumping all over the place in Epcot. So
Yes.
this one, again, I feel like can be a somewhat controversial pick, but let's talk about Space 220. I saw someone mention it in our chat earlier when we hopped over here to Epcot. So let's talk about Space 220. This, I will admit, stayed on my list primarily for the experience and the atmosphere.
Yeah, which does count for something, especially with kids, you know. I agree. I haven't actually tried this one, but my son is like asked to try it because he's such a space person.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know anything about Space 220, it's essentially you get into an elevator and it gives you the same feeling as they took the concept right off of Rocket to the Moon, or Mission to Mars, like an old Disneyland attraction where people used to like sit in a giant circle and then they would see there was a screen kind of below you and a screen above, and you would see yourself kind of take off from Earth and then go into space. So that's where they get the concept from. Very old Disney idea of space, traveling into space. But you do it instead of like a huge auditorium, you do it in an elevator. And then you go up into outer space, so to speak. And then they have large windows where you see space outside.
Yes, and it's like we're not going to talk about Coral Reef, but imagine Coral Reef, but in space. You've got these massive windows around you. And it's just like you're dining with the planets. It's really, really cool when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's a really fun concept for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem though has come with it, from what I understand, is the food. Right. In the past, at least, from what I've heard.
Yes. So I will mention that it is set pricing, prefix pricing, right, is what that's called. You can tell I know so much about all of this ADR business here. So for the kiddos, it is a set price for lunch and dinner. They do both for $29, and that includes an entree, a dessert, and a drink for the kiddos there. Their food options are super fun and themed for the kids. They have a space Getty, which is chicken meatballs and tomato sauce. They have a galactic salmon. They have cosmic chicken. They have a smashed burger. They have steak and space fries, and they have mission macaroni. So you get the idea. It's a very baseline kids menu when it comes to kind of what your options are there. They just have fun names.
Yeah, I think really it's the theming that you go for here.
Yes,
so many different things. But Bree says, I agree, amazing dining experience, and they had great burgers. So maybe burgers are a good option there.
Yeah, and I do have several people on my side of the chat talking about the lounge. Here's the thing with the lounge. We are focused on kids and experience for kids. If you do the lounge according to their menu, there are no kids-specific options for the lounge.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So they may or may not accommodate you if you choose to do the lounge. The lounge has more like walk-up same-day options as well. And the lounge is not that prefix price, so it is more a la carte when it comes to that. Now, that being said, they do still have options that your kiddo might like at the lounge. So you really just have to look at the menu and decide, because they've got, steak and fries, they've got burgers, they've got salmon, they've got, all of these options that are at the lounge as well. They just don't have kid-specific options, which is why I went more with looking at what the full restaurant had to offer, because we are focused on kids. Right. Now, if your kids will eat off of that full menu and you'd rather do the lounge because it's a la carte and you don't have to pay the prefix, go for it.
Yeah, it really depends on what your kids like, for sure.
Yes.
I think as a dining experience, though, just like looking at the pictures of it and kind of seeing what it looks like, it does still look like a really fun dining experience for those who really love space. Like, space is your jam. You have little kids that are just like want to be astronauts, really love rockets. Like, that's my son to a T. Like, he probably would love this place.
Yes, same with mine. My oldest would be in absolute heaven. He would be glued to the window the entire time.
it's a really neat experience. So you're paying for the experience.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I will say at $29 per child, you're looking more in the range of like when we looked at the like the buffet at Cape May was $27 per child.
Right.
So that gives you kind of a price comparison. When we were looking at Roundup Rodeo, which is all you care to enjoy, was $25 per child. So the price is definitely something you have to consider because you're not looking at a buffet or an all you care to enjoy, but you're looking at that same price point when it comes to the food.
Right.
So again, I left it on there because I think the atmosphere is worth noting.
No, I think
I'll
so.
leave
I
it
think I agree. I think that's good. Well, all that being said, should we move on to go to Italy?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to end with some Italian options here because I feel like Italian food is 90% kid friendly, I would venture to say. So
yeah, because even if it's like they don't like the sauces or something, they can always make like butter noodles and things like that. There's always an option with Italian places, I feel like.
Yes. So let's first venture and talk about the Tutto Italia Ristorante. That's my best Italian that I got for you today.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So at this location, they do lunch and dinner. When we're looking at the kids menu, they have 4 options. 4 entrees on their kids menu. They have a spaghetti with tomato sauce, beef and pork meatballs. They have, which I thought this one was interesting, they have mozzarella sticks as an entree. So if you've got a picky kiddo, but mozzarella sticks are something they'll eat, well, they can get a full entree of it here at this location. They also have chicken tenders and they have cheese or pepperoni pizza. So really standard Italian options when it comes to the food here. All of their entrees are $11, which makes it easy to budget.
Yeah. And the atmosphere is really fun. They have these like big murals on the walls, almost like an Italian garden. And they have these big chandeliers. So definitely feels kind of like a fancier Italian restaurant. You can see kind of the upholstery on the banquet seats and whatnot. It's not like, I wouldn't say it feels in like an upscale restaurant. I feel like it's like almost like a parody of a of a fancy Italian restaurant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what chain to like compare it to. Because it's not quite Olive Garden-esque, but
it's like maybe 2 clicks above Olive Garden.
Dial it up a little.
And they do, I've eaten here a couple of times, especially because my dad really loves Italian food. And we've always had a really good meal and a fun experience here. We usually save it for things like birthdays and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that it's like the world's best Italian food I've ever had. Right. But actually, I did think it was really good. I think it's a solid choice for kids.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's like my first choice and I've been there with my kids. So yeah, it's like a couple ones down the line.
Lemuel is comparing it to like a macaroni grill, which I feel like is probably fairly accurate.
Yeah, very much. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So again, really solid option for Italian food. That's about all I can say.
Should we move on to the other Italian one in Italy?
Yes.
So I have some things to say about this one.
Yes, let's talk about Via Napoli, which I feel like is one that everyone always brings up at Epcot, which, that's just one of those fan favorites over here. So they do lunch and dinner here. They have on their kids menu specifically, they've got 3 different options. And their options on the kids menu are a margherita pizza, spaghetti with tomatoes and meatballs and all that good stuff, and chicken tenders. I will also just mention that they do have like build your own pizza and some of that kind of stuff here as well. So that is an option for your kiddos if that's something where like, you want to split a pizza with them. That could be another option for the kiddos as well. As far as price point goes, their pizza and spaghetti on the kids menu is $11 and their chicken tenders are $11.50. So again, right in the middle of that range that we've been seeing for all of the other kids menus.
Yeah. The thing is that this is wood-fired pizza. So if you've had wood-fired pizza anywhere, that's what you're going to get here, except the pizzas are gigantic.
Yes.
I feel like we got the family one and it was like almost the size of the table. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is so much pizza. That literally I think we ordered 2 really big pizzas for our family of 5. We didn't even bother with the kids menu. We got a cheese pizza because our kids most of them like cheese pizza. And we got something that had something else on it for us. We had pizza left over, even though our kids were stuffed. And our kids, that was like the first thing when I said, where would you like to eat when we go back? They're like, that pizza place. Like they want to go back.
Yeah.
And it was really good. I have to say the pizza was very good. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend this for kids. If your kids are not picky in that they will eat the same thing or eat what you want to eat, just order one of the big pizzas and just have at it, because I think that's the easiest way to go in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said, it's a fan favorite. We had several people on the Discord when we asked for input from our lovely Mom Street community. This was one that got mentioned a couple of times. So definitely a favorite, definitely a really good option for kids.
Yeah, if you're familiar with like mod pizza, if anybody knows that, I don't know if that's maybe just a West Coast thing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar. So
okay,
I don't think there's any.
We do mod
in
pizza
Ohio.
here. It's like literally, it's like in the airport here, but it's also just like it's a chain that's here that is all wood fired pizza, and it's a make it yourself kind of. Well, not make it yourself. It's like a choose what you want on it kind of wood fired pizza. Very, very similar concept there as well. So that was our 7 most recommended restaurants for families in the Epcot area. But we do have 3 honorable mentions. So you want to talk about those a little bit, Jackie?
Yes. So as we were looking at this area of Disney property, we came across the Swan and Dolphin area. So they do have a couple options that look like decent choices for families and kids. We don't have personal experience, and we kind of decided, well, maybe we'll just kind of briefly touch on these. We know a lot of people that maybe aren't fond of going over to the Swan and Dolphin because it kind of takes you a little bit outside of the Disney bubble to an extent. But we thought they were worth mentioning either way.
Because they are good for families. So, and they are a solid option. And some of them, because they are run by third-party people, their prices tend to be a little bit more affordable than some official Disney restaurants. So that's also something, if you're looking to stay on budget, some of these are good options for that.
Yes. So we're going to talk about just 3 options very briefly over in the Swan and Dolphin area. The first is, and I'm guessing it's pronounced Amare, but I could be wrong.
I think so.
At the Swan section. They do lunch and dinner there. They have 6 options on their kids' menu. And again, this is really standard. They've got spaghetti, they've got chicken fingers, they've got cheeseburgers, hamburgers, cheese flatbread, and a pepperoni flatbread as well. Their prices range from $12 to $14, so pretty much on par, standard with what we see at all the other locations that we've discussed for those entree options.
I was trying to figure out what this is, and it says charred octopus.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like a snake. So I was like, what is
it? It does.
I don't think that's on the children's menu.
No, I can guarantee you, because I'm looking at it. It's not on the children's menu.
It looks like that was one of the favorites, though, from this review. So I guess the charred octopus is apparently pretty good.
There you go.
I've never eaten in this restaurant.
If you're over at the Swan, maybe give it a try if you're an adventurous eater.
Yeah, and then something I mentioned to Jackie, too, is that I've been to a conference at the Swan and Dolphin before, and they do tend to have a lot of conference goers as well. So be prepared that sometimes that might be the vibe. There is a lot of people going to a conference, so more business people or people that are there for other reasons. So not a really big deal, shouldn't impact your meal that much, but could be busy traffic-wise depending on the conference schedule and how people are moving around. And I do have a couple of people also mentioning that the ferry ride makes it very easy to get from Epcot to the Swan and Dolphin. So if you don't want to walk all that way, you can take the ferry, which is true.
Yes. And I think something, again, to kind of go off of what Kate was mentioning, you even though these places may be family friendly, you may see less quote unquote Disney families there. It's going to be maybe more of those people that might be there for conferences or business or those types of things. And our friend Deidre is saying over here, just ate at the Swan and Dolphin last week, didn't feel very family friendly compared to the Disney World Resort option.
Right.
So again, just a different vibe.
Right. Because there's so many conference goers, it's going to feel like like a lounge in an airport. You know, that's kind of how I feel about some of these. It's very much like business casual is how I would describe them. Yeah. Not that the food's bad or that the atmosphere is bad or anything. It's just different vibe.
Yes. So let's talk about the other option they have at the Swan, and that is Il Mulino, and it is a dinner-only option over at the Swan. They do have 7 options on their kids menu. They have a margarita pizza. They have a pepperoni pizza, fettuccine alfredo, penne rigate, spaghetti marinara, cheese ravioli, and chicken parmesan. Prices for this one range anywhere from $13 to $17, again in that same kind of realm. The nice thing that I did find for this location is that parties of 4 or more can opt for family style dining here. You still pay per person, but it's more of a family style. So things like seconds and that type of thing are maybe more frequent in that kind of a situation. So that is something to keep in mind if you guys are big. You know, it's mostly obviously Italian style food. So if you are looking for family style Italian, that's another option to throw in the running. And then there is one option over at the Dolphin that I did want to mention as well. And that is Todd's English Blue Zoo, which I thought was such an interesting name for a restaurant. When I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's not what I was anticipating it to say. But they also have dinner only at this location at the Dolphin. They have 5 options on their kids menu. They have cheeseburger, chicken breast, fish and chips, pasta, and a cheese pizza. And prices there range from $10 to $12. So again, just another option that has a really good kids menu, but maybe just a little out of the way if you're inside Epcot, inside the park.
It looks fancy. This one looks like...
Yeah, that one did look a little bit more...
Yeah, like a restaurant. It looks like a restaurant that's been placed in a ballroom that would use for a wedding reception. That's what it looks like to me. So I don't know if I would take my kids here, but it looks like a nice date night place. So
yeah. And it's so hard to tell with some of these, right? Like their kids menu looks really good and it's really affordable, but like you don't really know if you haven't been or seen inside or, you know, that. So it's kind of hard to tell. So again, we just wanted to mention those 3 as potential options for having good kid menus and being in close proximity to the Epcot area. Now, would we suggest leaving the park to go to one of those? Maybe not, because there are so many other options inside the park or closer to the park within walking distance. You know, it is walking distance. It's just quite a bit further than something like the Beach Club, which is where we started talking about 2 really great options for your family there. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. And with that, I think that ends the portion of this show about restaurants. Yeah?
Yes, I think so. After all that, we made it to the end. What a ride.
But I believe we still have our Ask the Moms question for the week.
We do, yes. So for anyone who is new or anyone who doesn't know, we end all of our podcast episodes with our Ask the Mom segment, where we take a question from our Mom Street community. Could be related, could be completely unrelated and different, but something related to the Disney parks, and we give our best answer to the best of our ability. So this week, our question for Ask the Moms is, where can I watch nighttime fireworks at Disney World without being in the parks?
It's a really great question. Jackie, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so I know there are lots of really good locations for Magic Kingdom specifically. So if you're looking for the Magic Kingdom fireworks, basically any of the resorts that are around Magic Kingdom on like the monorail loop are going to give you a good view. Some locations are reserved for like resort guests only, so you may run into that, especially during busy times. The beach at the Polynesian is one that I know for sure they during busy times will like, nope, you gotta like scan your room key to even be let out there. But that being said, the beach at the Polynesian, there are some docks over at the Contemporary too that I know, and some beach locations over there as well, I think. And then the Grand Floridian. So I was like, which one did I miss? Has some locations as well that you'll be able to see the fireworks from. And you really just kind of got to pull up the map and take a look and see what part of the resort faces towards Magic Kingdom. And if it faces towards Magic Kingdom, chances are good you'll be able to see some fireworks.
Yeah, I feel like if you timed it just right, you might be able to be on a ferry going across, right?
True.
You know, like you probably we wouldn't be on it for the entire duration of the fireworks necessarily, but you could, instead of paying for a fireworks cruise, like, you know, make your own fireworks cruise by hopping on the ferry at the right time, and then you can
because I mean there's even visibility from the TTC that you can see the fireworks from. Now, is it going to be the most picturesque, comfortable place for you to watch them? No, but you're still going to be able to see them when it comes to Magic Kingdom. Some of the other places I know that if you are in some of the like ADR locations have firework viewing like windows and stuff. I know California Grill at the Contemporary does, and Ohana does at the Polynesian. I think that might be the only ones that I know for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't recommend this for like the best place to go view the fireworks, but I have seen some really unique fireworks views from the monorail. Like, it's nice to sit on the monorail and watch the fireworks from there. You don't get the same effect as the music and stuff, so I would recommend that being like your plan. But you know, if you're just tired at the end of the day and you don't want to fight the crowds, but you still want to get the vibes, I think that's a really easy one to do, and you don't have to be in the parks for that. You just have to be in the resort area. I want to say also for Disneyland, I know they specifically asked Disney World, but Disneyland, this is something that people do at Disneyland, is they go into the plaza between the two parks and people just set up camp there and they watch the fireworks from Disneyland without having to go or pay to go in. That happens. But you also have to know at Disneyland, if fireworks are actually happening, because they don't happen every night, especially during the school year. They don't happen on school nights. And they might get canceled, probably will get canceled for high altitude wind, which happens all the time. And if you're not inside the park, you might not hear that announcement that they're thinking about canceling it, because they do kind of give you a warning a couple minutes before, being like, we haven't made our final decision yet, but we might be canceling due to high altitude wind, which happens all the time in Santa Ana. So, or in Anaheim with the Santa Ana winds. So, but if you want to give it a try, it's free anyway. So you can always try. If nothing else, you can go to Downtown Disney and enjoy the stuff that's there. But
yeah.
I can try to think if there's anywhere else we can do fireworks besides Magic Kingdom.
So Epcot, if you're wanting to catch Luminous. I was like, what is the name of the new one? I don't know, but you may be able to see those like outside International Gateway kind of area. Like the walkway towards the boardwalk, you may be able to see them.
Maybe.
There's a lot of trees there, so I can't guarantee that you would actually be able to see them from there.
I know. I'll have to check it out next time I go.
Yeah, sure.
You could also be in a Skyliner and like flying away for all of 20 seconds. You could see a really great part of the show.
You could, I guess, you could try to loop it, but it's a pretty long loop, and I don't know that you would be able to see much from there. And then, I will mention that I would consider Fantasmic a nighttime show, not necessarily a fireworks show. You can hear and see a little bit of that from right outside the gates at Hollywood Studios, but I don't know that that's really worth your time.
No, I probably wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my best suggestion again. And the other thing about hopping back to Magic Kingdom for a moment, the other thing about that is if you time it right, you can also catch the electrical water pageant as well around those locations. So
that's true. And Chris is also saying over here, they could see them okay from the fourth floor at Boardwalk Villa. So it's true, if you have you're staying in a room that has a balcony that faces anywhere close to one of those places during the nighttime show, you might be able to catch some of the fireworks from there too. That's also true at Disneyland. If you're staying some of those Harbor Boulevard hotels, often you'll be able to see the fireworks from there, even though you won't be able to hear the music at all. So that's always really fun.
Yes, and places around Magic Kingdom at Disney World, like the beach at the Polynesian, like they will pipe in the music. So if you're looking for like full experience, those are kind of your best bets if you're looking for music plus the show to kind of get the whole thing without being inside the park.
My favorite one like that was when I stayed at the Grand Californian and we had a park view room, and it was, they played World of Color on your television, the music for it, so you could tune to a certain channel. And then we sat on our balcony and we literally had a view of the entire lagoon from our balcony of our room. And it was the most amazing thing ever. So that was my favorite because it was really close because that hotel is super close to the park.
Right.
So yeah,
that's really cool. Our friend Victoria is saying, I watched the Epcot fireworks on the beach yacht ferry dock and it was fun.
Oh, okay. Beach yacht.
So yeah, I guess that would make sense. Again, it may depend on time of year and tree coverage.
Yeah, that's also true. If the leaves are out or not, it would definitely change your view for sure.
Yes. So it may or may not. I mean, Florida, I live in Ohio. We actually have, a time of year when the trees have no leaves on them. Florida doesn't necessarily get that. But that may...
Few lose their leaves. Deciduous trees.
So yeah, Epcot is a lot harder. Magic Kingdom is really easy to find spots to be able to see those fireworks for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for submitting questions for our Ask the Moms segment. We always appreciate when our community chimes in and gives input and helps kind of gear our podcast episodes. That way we can get you guys the information that you're asking for. If you've got questions that you'd like to send us for Ask the Moms, we would be more than happy to add them to one of our upcoming episodes. You can find us on all of the socials at Mom Street USA in all of the places. You can email us at momstreetusa@gmail.com. And if you are on the Discord or want to be on the Discord, we are part of our friend Kirk at Walrus Carp His Pocket Fam Discord. The link for that can be found in our bios.
Yeah, and we also have a brand new website page on my website, Disney Cicerone. So it's disneycicerone.com/momstreetusa. And you can learn a little bit more about who we are and what we're doing and sign up for our newsletter and all those kinds of cool things. So yes, really fun to have that finally.
Yes, we're slowly making progress with all of that. And yes, January of this year was our very first attempt at a newsletter for Mom Street USA. So we're hoping to make that a monthly thing that we send out and just kind of a recap of the month and some more of our tips and tricks for you guys to help plan your upcoming trips.
Yes, and if you need help planning your upcoming trip, if you're feeling really overwhelmed and you need a little bit of extra assistance, Jackie is one of the most amazing people I know for helping people plan their Disney trips. She's a travel consultant, not a trip advisor. She's a travel consultant, and she can help you do a lot of different things to make your trip planning easier, to organize it exactly for what your family needs. So you can always contact her via momstreetusa@gmail.com, and she can get back to you with seeing how she can help. So
I can do that.
She's like, I can. Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
But we know that this can be really overwhelming to plan a Disney trip, especially, well, Disney World is a lot. And if you're feeling like it's just too much for you, we're here for you guys. Not only with this podcast, but also Jackie can help as well. So that being said, shall we wrap it up for the evening?
Yes, let's briefly just mention what's coming up before we sign off for this episode.
I'm just like...
No, you're good. You're like, we're done. We did it. Hooray. So we are continuing on our next podcast episode, our ADRs. We are going to bridge the coasts on our next episode. So the next episode is going to be really interesting because we are going to be talking downtown Disney and Disney Springs. So we're going to wrap up our Florida info and then hop on over to California for that episode. And then part 4 will be Disneyland and California Adventure. But next time, come hear all about the options at those shopping centers. I think that's going to be really interesting to do some research on those.
Yeah, for sure. Because I don't always eat there. So it'll be really interesting.
I very rarely eat there, if I'm being completely honest. So
I mostly go there if I have to fly out that day, but I don't want to go anywhere else. So it'll be nice to research that. But yeah. Okay. Well, are we good? Wrap up?
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Mom Street USA. It's been so much fun to dig into these advanced dining reservations and debate maybe what is good and maybe not as great for your family about some of these options. But of course, you always know your family best and you know what they would need the most. So we always say, listen to your gut instinct trust yourself as a parent, as a guardian for your kids, and just book what you think would be the best for your family. That being said, Jackie, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
Just thank you to our Mom Street community for your input on this episode. It was so tricky trying to narrow down these options at Epcot especially. So we're really grateful that you guys had some input on our Discord and in the live TikTok chat as we recorded this evening. We're super grateful for that. So thank you guys so much. And we will catch you on our next episode.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.